everyone, my name is Roussel, also known as Deja, and today I am going to be doing my worst books of 2023. I really shouldn't say that this is my worst books of 2023 because this is really just going to be all of the DNFs that I have for 2023. And so it's not necessarily that these books were terrible, they just really weren't for me. Usually I will DNF a book if I don't feel like it's going to be at least a 3-star read for me. There were a few that I did end up finishing that they did get less than a 3-star, and so I will mention those at the end, but the other ones are just all the DNFs that I had for the year. So I guess the better title would be all the DNFs that I had for 2023, plus some disappointing ones. In 2023, it looks like I DNF'd 34 books. And I feel like that's because as the year got further along, like I just stopped really wanting to find like mediocre books. I feel like in 2023, like I didn't really find a lot of amazing reads. I did have some that I really enjoyed, but nothing that really made me want to go back and like really read them, which is what I really look for in a 5-star read. Now that I have said all like the background information, let me just go ahead and get started. These are in no particular order. This is just the way that it's showing up on my story graph. The first one I DNF'd is Mule by Zora Neale Hurston. This one, I feel like it's just because it was the playwright. And in the edition that I had, they had the short story in the beginning, and I feel like since I read the short story, I don't really need to read the play because it's based off of the short story. So I was just like, let me just DNF it because I don't really care. Zora Neale Hurston is very known for the way that she writes characters, especially Black characters. And I just feel like while that was well, I feel like it was just meandering too much. And so I was just like, I don't really care to finish this, and so I DNF'd it. And I thought it was interesting because the edition that I also had was detailing the drama between Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes, who was the co-author of this Mule play. And I thought that was fascinating. But the rest of it, I was just like, I don't really care to finish. The next one that I have is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Quickie Emezi. I knew that this book was messy, but I don't think it's the messiness that really got it for me. There was just something missing in this story for me. I don't know whether or not it was the characters. I feel like it was the characters because I wasn't really like loving or hating any of them. I feel like the storyline was fine. It's not really a romance in my opinion from what I read, but people pitch it as like a romance. I don't know. I thought it was fine for what it was, but it just wasn't hooking me enough to want to finish it. Then I have Black Cake, and I picked this one up because the Hulu series came out on whatever day it came out, and I wanted to read it before I actually watched the show. This one, I mean, like, it was fine. I was listening to it while I was cooking. I got 64% into it, which, side note, I will have all the percentages that I DNF'd all of these books at the bottom of the screen. But I DNF'd this one 64% in, and I just wasn't, like, being hooked again. Like, I feel like it was a fine story, just a family, like, journey drama as this woman is, like, recounting her life story, which I don't know if that's no, I don't think that's a spoiler. I mean, but I also feel like the story was just kind of predictable to me. Like, I feel like a lot of the things that happened up to the 64% mark, like, it's just that kind of story where it's just like nothing was really surprising me. Like, once things were introduced, I was just like, oh, this is probably where this is gonna lead, and then that's where it led. So I was just like, I don't really care. And then my library checkout ended up expiring, and I just didn't care to like renew it or anything, so I just DNF'd it. Then I have Moth Death's Claws by Indy Jones. I did a Angels Demons vlog, I think that was that one. And I feel like this author, there's something about her writing that doesn't like really connect with me. And I feel like it was really this that really made me want to DNF this one, and so I did. The story is actually a sequel or companion novel to A Queen's Pride, which I ended up reading maybe a year or so ago, I think. But that one, like, I was still, I don't know, it ended up being like a 3 or 3.5 star read for me. Like, it was fine, but I think I just had problems with the execution again, and so I thought maybe the second book would be better. But I think that it's just like a recurring thing for me when it comes to this author, that the way that it's executed, like, I'm not into it. Like, I'm more into character driven like stories. And not to say that these books aren't character driven. I just remember in A Queen's Pride, like, this person was really driven for revenge. And even the other book that I read earlier this year by this author, the Angels one, I don't know what the title is called. Like, I feel like that one was also driven by revenge, and I wasn't really interested. And so I DNF'd that one at 6%. And then the first book that I actually DNF'd for the year was New Year, New Sea. According to my story graph, because I honestly completely forgot all about the story, it says, I think it was really the writing for me. While I like the drama, I feel like the writing didn't do transitions well. All of these bad things were happening, but instead of really sitting with the character and her emotions, we would just transition to a new scene in like a sentence. So I guess it was the writing. Honestly, this book wasn't really that memorable for me. I remember the guy cheated on her or something, and then I think she just started to annoy me. But that's honestly pretty much all I got from her. Like, I feel like just based off of this description, if she wasn't really like doing much reflecting on like her becoming like a new person, I was just like, how are you going to be a new person? So I was just like, that's not connecting for me. So I DNF'd that one. And then I DNF'd Queen of the Conquered. This was on my 23 books to read for 2023. And this was actually a huge disappointment because I really wanted to like the morally gray character. I DNF'd this like really quickly. I don't even think I got 100 pages into this because the main character, while she is morally gray, I feel like she was really, how do I say this? Not the right kind of morally gray. I want to say, like, when you're dealing with like slavery and like, especially when you're dealing with slavery when it comes to actual people that were enslaved, because I'm pretty sure this is Caribbean inspired. Her family was some kind of ruling family, and so now they're using her as like a puppet or whatever to control like the people that actually follow the ruling family. But I just feel like I couldn't be sorry for her. So, like, she would be feeling bad about all these, like, bad things happening to her people. I didn't like how, like, the writing was trying to make me feel bad for her when she was just very complicit. And even at that, like, I feel like she was just very, what is it? I don't know. Like, she did her own, like, privileged things. She had, like, this little bodyguard or something that she was having relations with. And she would use her power to basically make him, like, do stuff with her even when he didn't want to. And that's the point that I really just, like, stopped. Because I cannot feel bad for this character. When she did the whole assault, basically, on this character, I was just like, no, I can't root for you. So I DNF'd it. And then I have Forging a Nightmare. This one, I don't think it was a bad book at all. Like, if anything, I was very curious about it, and I know that quite a few people really enjoyed it. But I don't think that I'm really into detective stories, and that's pretty much the reason why I DNF'd it. Like, I just don't care about detective stories. I don't care about following, like, a sleuth or whatever. This main character is a detective, but he's also, like, an archangel, which I thought was, like, very interesting. But the main character, like, I just felt like he was just way too much of a detective for me. Like, just always trying to, like, ask these questions or whatever to get to the heat of the mystery or something. And I was just like, I don't really care to read this. And so I DNF'd it. The next one that I have is The Witchery. This one I quickly DNF'd as well because I feel like it was really written kind of like a teen TV like drama type of thing. Like, it's giving me like Vampire Diary vibes, just old school like paranormal vibes. And I wasn't really interested in that when I was growing up, and I'm still not very interested in teen paranormal dramas. As many times as I've tried to watch the Vampire Diaries, I cannot. And so I was just like, I'm not even going to try with The Witchery. And then I have In the Belly of the Congo. This one was purely like a writing thing. I tried to read like the first few pages so many times, and I just like, my brain was not comprehending it. And I feel like it was almost reading like it was a textbook, and I was just like, no, I'm not even gonna put myself through that. The next one I did was Emotional Self-Care for Black Women. I didn't have this one because I feel like the advice was very basic, but then I also heard that this author wasn't even a Black woman. So then I was like, I'm not even about to finish this so that this person can like ruin my track record of only reading Black authors for this year. So yeah, I DNF that one. And then I DNF Return to the Enchanted Island. I don't actually remember anything about this book, so I'm going to read what I wrote on Storygraph. It says, I think that if I was more interested in this guy's life, I might have liked it, but I'm just not connecting to anything in it. It's definitely just following this guy's life, and I don't think anything else is going to happen. So I guess I wasn't interested in the story or the characters. So there's that. The next one I also don't really remember. It's Shattered Souls by Rose Dior or something like that. This one, I don't know, it was just like a romance or something, but here's what I wrote on the Storygraph. This was a prequel to the next story, and I don't really feel like this story is going to have any substance. I think we're just going to follow them grieving, but then the next book deals with the grief too, so I might just read that instead of this book. I did not read that next book. But like I feel like that's a problem that a lot of prequels have. Like it tries to give you like a lot of background leading up to like whatever's gonna happen, but then there's not a substance in that first prequel story. I'm not going to read a book that doesn't have substance. So I was just like, let me DNF this. And then I had Did You Hear About Kitty Carr? This one I feel like I DNF because it was pretty predictable. I thought it was going to give me like Hollywood starlet type of vibes, which I was like, ooh, that's super cool. But it's really just about this Black woman that was like passing, and she has some kind of connection to this Black family or something, and she leaves them all her money, and everybody's like wondering why. And it's just kind of like two different timelines trying to, I guess, lead up to this moment. I didn't get far into this, but without them even like telling me, like I knew that Kitty Carr, the famous actress that died and left the money, I'm pretty sure she was passing. And if I look at spoilers, I'm probably like, I'm 99% sure that's what was happening. And so I decided to DNF because I don't care. And then I DNF'd The Awakening, which is the next book in the Vampire Huntress series. This one, I DNF'd because... Why did I DNF this one? I feel like it was the writing. I wasn't really connecting to it. So the first book, Vampire Huntress, I think it's called Minion or something, I also DNF'd that before I tried it again, and I really enjoyed it. This one, I really liked the parts of... is it Carlos, I think the guy's name is, but I don't know, like his parts just couldn't make up for, is it Damali's part? Like I really couldn't get into her part, and so I was just like, let me just not finish this. And so even though like the vampire stuff was getting very interesting to me and I really enjoyed Carlos's part, I was just like, I just really can't stand Damali. I didn't like her in the last book, but like I really liked the tension between her and Carlos. But then I was just like, this part, like they're just reciting all this information to her, and I'm just like, I can't. Like I hate when characters do that, when they're just like reciting so much information to the character that doesn't really know anything, but they're the main character. I don't like it. And then I have When Shadows Fall. This one was purely just because it's not my kind of story. I didn't have to this part where they were like going through like a journey through like a forest for like some kind of trials because they have to go do something, and I was just like, I don't really care, which I guess is like a lot of the reasons why I DNF a lot of these. Like I don't really care for the characters, I don't really care for the story, and so yeah, I DNF this one. It's fine as it is, I guess. It reads more young adult, and so I was just like, I'm not in the mood for it, and so I DNF'd it. The next one that I have is such a disappointment because I was really looking forward to this, and it could have been so good if like just a few little things, if it was just like a different character. I feel like I would have liked this a lot more. And this is The Fallos Souls. I tried reading this book twice. I got further in the second time, of course, but yeah, I could not get through this. The main female character, she was just like trying to be headstrong, but then not really headstrong to me. Like, I don't know, like her character wasn't strong enough to me. And then when you put on the whole soulmates equation, I feel like soulmates could work for me, but the way that it was executed here, I don't think that it really worked for me. I think that this was fine. I really see the potential in the author as a fantasy romance author. But yeah, I feel like their connection was way more sexual than it was emotional, and soulmates, you have an emotional connection. And so that paired with the fact that I didn't really care for the characters, I was just like, I'm going to DNF. So it was definitely a disappointment, but I don't know. I'm excited to try the author's next one, hopefully. We'll see. And then I have May a Divine Awaken. This one, I feel like it was the character voice, and it was like just the meandering beginning. Like, I feel like it was like a lot of info dumping and just like meandering through the day just to info dump, which I don't even think I got far enough to make it to like the full day. Like, I feel like it was just like maybe a few pages. I don't know. I DNF'd that 1% because I didn't really like the voice of the character. And then I have Becoming by Michelle Obama. This one was a disappointment, but frankly, I just found this boring. Like, I just found it boring. So, yeah. Then I have Where It Rains in Color. This one, I feel like it was also just kind of meandering, and I also just, I don't know, it got to this one perspective, and I was just like, why are we jumping perspectives? And I just feel like nothing was really happening, and it could have been so cool. But it was doing a lot of world building, and yeah, I lost interest, pretty much. Like, I very much lost interest, which is such a shame because this is also a very beautiful cover. So I was disappointed by this one as well. And then I have Exiled or Malcolm. I've seen multiple titles. I DNF'd this one. I was trying to read this for a werewolf vlog to also read it off my TBR because it's been on my TBR for the longest. But this one, I don't want to talk too much about because the author's planning on rewriting it. So whatever I say right now, it's not probably going to be in the next one. But frankly, I just really didn't like the dynamic between Malcolm and the women. Like, he was just like as this like fawned over like black guy that was just like, I don't know, it's just not macho. I don't want to say that, but like I just feel like the women were just like all over him, and then you have like the damsel in distress who is the reason why he's even like hiding or running away or even about to go do anything. But then he has like a whole like side girl that's a vampire, and I just feel like he was just so bland. Like, I was like, why do all these women want him? Like, he's just so bland. Plus, I also feel like the villain was just very one-dimensional. So, yeah. I'll just leave it at that because I know the author is rewriting it. And then I have The Vampire King by Wright. This one was also a very big disappointment. It could have been so cool. This world is very cool. You have a king that's a vampire, and he kills all of his sons. Like, they have these like maidens, which is who the main character is. You have these maidens that have a specific type of blood, and that gives them the ability to birth vampire children. But he kills all of his male vampire heirs because there's like prophecy or something that will allow them to overtake the vampire king. This sounds like it could be amazing. But then you throw in the main character. Of course, she has red hair because she has to have red hair. And of course, you also have her being like headstrong, but also a damsel, but then also kind of stupid. Like, I don't know. She just was just starting to annoy me. And then the voice of her, I feel like she was just not that it wasn't strong, but I just feel like she was just like one of those annoying like characters. If you think of like the From Blood and Ash, I was about to say ass because that was a joke, but From Blood and Ash, but if you see that character or even that book, like, I feel like you would honestly really like this one because it gives me like the same vibes. This story is very predictable. I feel like Poppy was way more annoying, but it still gives you the same vibes that you would want. I DNF'd this one at 53% because I was just really hoping that when she finally got to the destination that she was trying to go to, that it wouldn't be as predictable as I thought it was going to be. It was exactly how I thought it was going to happen. And I was like, I'm 53% into this book. Why didn't you even like surprise me with anything? Like, he said what was going to happen, and that's exactly what happened. I was just like, I don't know. I was really annoyed by that. So I was just like, let me just DNF it. And then I have the next one that was also very predictable. This is The Many Dates of Indigo. I should have known because this was a Wattpad book, I'm pretty sure. And I don't want to like stereotype Wattpad books, but they just are not like the quality that I usually like reading sometimes, I guess. Because sometimes I can read like lower quality books as long as it gives me like a good story. And so this one follows a girl named Indigo. She has like maybe 2-3 dates, but then she also has like a restrained relationship with like her best friend or whatever, because they had like a relationship but then something happened, and you can probably guess what happened between them, because again, this was very predictable. So yeah, I DNF'd it. And then I have Harlem Sunset. This one I had on my TBR from like the library for the longest, and then I was just like, let me just finally get to it because I just want something quick. And what really made me DNF this one is the fact that the main character cheated on her girlfriend that she's trying to like solve the murder for so she doesn't go to jail. And I was just like, you cheated on the girl you're trying to like free from the persecution of the police. So then where does your motivation go? And then I also feel like the story was just very meandering, and it was really just, I feel like, trying to show like the aftermath of like the first book, which I barely even remember. But from what I understand, like something happened and she's like scarred by that, so she's really trying to like heal herself and like just like deal with things. And so she's dealing with like a lot of family issues and all this other stuff. So it's really like an emotional journey. But like when she cheated on the girl that she's trying to solve the murder for, I was just like, no. And then reading some reviews, I saw that what you think is going to happen actually happened. And I wasn't thinking about anything about what was going to happen and like who was the suspected person. But I swear, if I would have got to the end and it was like somebody that I was suspecting, I would have been even doubly pissed. This would have been a 1-star read. And then I have Dear Haiti, Love You Lane, and I don't really remember this one, so I'm going to also read what I wrote on Storygraph. It says, I'm not getting along with the style of the storytelling, and I'm not sure what this story is going to be about. I think it's just following Elaine's life, but while there's interesting elements, I'm not interested in continuing it. I feel like I remember like there's multiple like storylines happening. Like I feel like her mom was like a politician or something, or like some kind of busy like work person. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's also something with like popularity. I don't know. It wasn't a memorable book, so I DNF'd it. And then I have A Heart to Hold. I read the That My Dear Is Love book like early last year in 2023, and that one I had problems with like the threads going like here and there, plus like the characters. This one I felt like it was going to be more of the same thing, and I just DNF'd it because I was like, I don't want more of the same thing. Plus, I wasn't really connecting to the characters, so I was just like, let me just not. And then I have The Final Strife. This one was purely because it just wasn't like my kind of story. I wasn't really connecting to the characters, but I also wasn't really connecting to like the story in that like I don't really like training scenes when it comes to that. And I would have been fine more with like the rebellion story, but like that would have been like another 100 or so pages. And it started like so slow. Like the main character was meandering so much, and I was just like, I cannot do like another 100 pages of this and then like another 100 pages of training, and I already don't like training scenes, so I was just like, let me DNF it. And then I have Africa Risen, which is a series of short stories. This one, I liked some of the stories that I read, but none of the stories in the beginning really made me want to continue. And I was like, I don't really want to like try the first like paragraph or whatever of each of these stories just to find maybe one or two more that I really enjoy. And then I have As the Wicked Watch. This one I feel like it was more of like an essay of like Black girls missing rather than like a detective or someone trying to figure out like what happened to this girl. Like there was like so many like times that I feel like the author was really just going on these, not tangents, but just these like long monologues, I should say, of like Black girls missing and tying that to everyday, which I appreciated, but like not in a novel. I also DNF Sinful Vow with permission from Heather at HEA Booktubes because I was really going to push through this, but then I was just like, no, I don't want to. Like I really wasn't really feeling called to, and when she was like, yeah, you can DNF, and I was like, yeah, I can. So I DNF'd it. I feel like this one was also fine, but I think that the beginning really like threw me off just by like how much information was like put into it, and then I kept feeling like the characters like energy like together, their sexual energy together, I should say, but I wasn't really feeling their emotional connection. And I wasn't really feeling the mafia stuff either. And when I say that I wasn't really feeling like the mafia stuff, like I really like the mafia elements, but when it came to like these two characters, and specifically the girl, whoever her name is, I want to say her name is Lucia or something with an L, maybe? I don't know. When it came to those two characters, I feel like Lucia is the person that like kind of annoyed me a little bit. Like she's just like one of those like assassin women or whatever, but like I wasn't feeling her character. There was just something about her. I like the guy, but like her, there was just something about her that I wasn't connecting with. And I don't know. I'll leave it at that. Like, I'm still very curious to try more by Asia Monique. Specifically, the one that Rhea Bookmark Chronicles really likes because she shared, like, a quote on her Instagram one day. And I was just like, oh, I kind of want to try it. And she really loves it. So, I still want to try by this author. But, like, this dynamic between this couple, I wasn't really feeling. And then I DNF'd One Ain't Enough by Mo Flames. This one was purely because I skipped to the end and I figured out who the main character was supposed to be ending up with. Because this is a messy book, but like, it's not the kind of messy that I like. There was like domestic violence in this. And I was just like, okay. And then, like, the guy that she's supposed to be ending up with is the best friend of the guy that was putting hands on her. And I was like, how are you best friends with the guy that's putting hands on the girl that you like? And I was just like, why? Like, no. And I was just like, it's supposed to be like this whole like messy thing, but I'm just like, you cannot like this woman and you be friends with the guy that's putting hands on her. So I was just like, no. I don't root for this guy, so I'm not going to be rooting for their romance like the entire time. And so I was just like, let me DNF this because I'm going to get annoyed. And then I have Yonder. This one, I feel like it was fine, but like, I feel like the summary was telling me more of like a love story between these two enslaved people, but I feel like I wasn't getting enough of the love story in it because I feel like if the slavery stuff was more in like the background, I feel like I would have been perfectly fine. But it feels like it was more in the foreground instead of the background. And so yeah, I didn't have that one. Then I have Vicious Bonds. I feel like I mentioned somewhere that there was one author that ended up doing like she's usually like a thriller writer or something, and then she ended up trying to switch to fantasy and it wasn't well. This is that author. I just could not stand the characters in this one. I just felt like they were kind of dumb, but then I also just couldn't really stand their dynamic as well. And then also, I feel like the fantasy felt very generic. I was like, this is a beautiful cover, but this just feels very generic. And so I did nothing because I was like, I don't care. And then I have two more left. The first one being The Silence of Wilting Skin. I had this on like my reading like shelf for like the longest of times because I started it and then I just stopped reading it, and I was just never really feeling called to pick it up. And part of that was because I read some and I was like 70 something% into it, I want to say, but then I restarted it and I was just like, I don't even know what I read and I'm still not really understanding what I'm reading. And then after a point, like I just stopped wanting to pick it up, and so I just picked it up because I just wasn't interested in it anymore. And then the last one I have is Cuissan Kingdom. This one I DNF'd because I wasn't really connecting to the story, but also the characters. And then there were just like a few stylistic choices that I feel like didn't really vibe with me. There was like another point of view or something that I was just like, I don't really like how this character sounds, and it was just like going on and on. And I was just, no, I DNF'd that one. But that wraps up all of the books that I DNF'd for 2023. I probably should have DNF'd more. But now I want to jump into a few books that I rated less than 3 stars. The first one is CAU Back by Ndala Hopkinson. This one, I feel like I was more confused in a lot of it. I had to read it twice because I was just really confused on like what I read. And I still don't really know what I'm supposed to get from it. And I feel like the shortness is what really gave it a disservice for me. Like, I understand what happened a little bit, but I also feel like it definitely would have been better if it was longer, because I feel like some of the elements, like, it just wasn't working in, like, the shorter form, and I feel like it was just being very, what is it, not long-winded, it's the opposite, short-winded, I guess, like, I don't know, it was just very, short for, I feel like, the messages that I was trying to bring, and I just wanted a little bit more. And then the last one that I gave less than 3 stars is Love Bites. This one, I feel like it could have been great. I love vampires. I love, like, the idea of Fang City, which is where this book takes place. You have this, like, bougie vampire family, and this woman is supposed to be, like, the queen of, like, the, not the underside, but, like, she's, like, the poorer side. So she's, like, the queen of the poorer side, which is part of my problem with it, because I feel like the character, I forgot her name, but the character who was supposed to be like the queen, like, I feel like she wasn't really treated like royalty, so I don't really understand how they got her to, like, think that she was like the queen of, like, this poorer side of town. But I guess for political reasons they wanted to join marriages, and I don't know, their romance, I couldn't really buy into it. And so yeah, I finished it because I had an ARC review, and this is also by an author that I occasionally chat with and all of that. I definitely wanted to love it, but I just feel like it just wasn't, there was just, like, too many questions and, like, things that the characters did that I just really didn't like. And plus I feel like it also had, like, a pacing issue. And so yeah, I gave that one 2.5 stars. But that will wrap up all of the books that were disappointing to me, and I guess all of the books that I DNF'd. I will hopefully have my best books of 2023 next week. And spoiler alert, it's probably less than 5 books because I had a very mediocre reading year. But yeah, I hope that you have enjoyed my worst books, or I guess all my DNFs for 2023, and the disappointing books that I had for 2023. If you have actually finished any of these and you think that they're worth me going back to, I would definitely be open to it, at least for some of them. But if not, then just leave me a green heart, I guess, for the new year. I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!